welcome back. This is Lisa Ingram, and this is part 2 of our kids social distance pottery class with mushrooms. And so today I'm going to show you how we apply our glaze to our mushroom. So in our first video, we constructed the mushroom, we used our slab to make the bottom, and then we did a pinch pot to make the top, and we've got a little bit of texture underneath and some dots on the top. So in your project kits, you have 4 colors, and you can see right here, I've got mine in a little palette. You've got little cups, but I have white here. This one's grapple, so it's a royal purple color, kind of like what's on this one. This one's green thumb. It's a very bright green, and this one is hot tamale, so it's very similar to this red right here. So the colors that you got in your kit, they won't look exactly like what they're going to look once fired. They change a good bit. They get glossy and they get a lot brighter. So that's exciting. Before we get started, I want everybody to take a minute and find some sort of scratchy tool like your toothpick or pen or the pointy end of your paintbrush, and I want you to put your initials on your mushroom. So I'm gonna have close to 100 pieces of pottery coming back after this class. So please make sure that you get your initials on these or your name so that I can read it pretty easily. If you can get it on the inside here where you're not glazing, that is perfect. I'm gonna put on mine L-I, and you can put your middle initial as well. And then on whatever box you bring it back to me in, just write your initials on that too so that I know who goes with what, and that will be so helpful so that everybody gets the right thing back from me, because they all go in the kiln and get all mixed up. So you have to put your name on it if you want it back. So glazing pottery is pretty straightforward. The 2 things that are different are that, one, your piece is breakable, so you want to be really gentle as you handle this. So I like to pick it up by the bottom, support it with both of my hands when possible. I'm not going to pick it up by the edge of this pinch pot right here because it could break off. The whole pinch pot can come off of your piece, so you can hold it by the top, but it's a little bit better if you hold it upside down so that this is not trying to separate. So just think about that. Don't pick it up by one of your attachments. Just be very careful as you move it around. If for some reason it falls apart, just pick them separately and keep them nice and wet. Wrap them back up after they're done and the paint isn't wet anymore on it, and I will get them back together for you. As always, just let me know if you have questions or problems with that. So the other thing that's different is that we do multiple coats of our glaze. So we want to do 2 or 3 layers of our colors to get a good solid coverage. I always work background forward, so you might want to start with your dots first if you have dots or any kind of decoration. I do that last. It's a little bit easier. So I think I'll just start with the stem here. And I'm going to use one of my larger paintbrushes, so you can see I've got enough paintbrushes for each different color. Then I don't have to wash them out in between. And a dry paintbrush applies the glaze a lot better than a wet one. It's going to allow the glaze to go on a little bit thicker. So I'm just brushing this on, and my clay, I wrapped it up after I made this mushroom a couple days ago, so it's been a couple of days, and it's not flexible anymore. It's in what we call the leather hard stage. So there is still some water in this clay, but it's not going to flex as I move it. So that's what you want, is not dry clay, not super brittle clay, but not flexible anymore, and not having gone through a color change or much of a color change. The other thing to pay attention to is you don't want to get any glaze on the bottom. If you get any on the bottom, I'm gonna have to take a sponge and wipe it off, because this has a glossy glass finish in it, and it will melt and stick the mushroom to the kiln. So you want to keep glaze away from the bottom. You also, like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to paint the inside of the stem, just put your initials there so that I can make sure I know whose it is. So that's a good first coat of glaze for me. It's a little bit uneven, but I'm gonna straighten that up and smooth it out with coat 2. I'm not gonna touch it because it will take a little bit of time to dry. So the next thing that I wanna do this underneath part right here. And I'm gonna do, I like to call it a pop color, so I'm gonna do this one green underneath. Now, you don't have to do the underneath and the top different colors, but I wanted to show you how I like to add in some surprise colors. So I'm just gonna dip in, this one's green thumb. It's really pretty and bright. And I'm just going to go around. And if you have little bits of clay showing, because I might not let it go all the way up to the stem, that's okay, because I love that these mushrooms, they are just funky, they are out there, they're going outside of my garden, and mushrooms just have this earthy kind of funky look, so these are gonna look good no matter how you glaze them. So I'm just gonna go around and do my next coat. My first coat of glaze is still sticky, so I'm not gonna touch where the white is. If you have anything at home, like in the kitchen, that spins like this, that's nice to have, but as you can see, I'm not really using it. I just like to lift my piece up for you guys to be able to see it a little bit better. But this is called a banding wheel. I like to use these a lot in my pottery studio. Some people have something like this for decorating cakes and cupcakes and cookies and pastries. So some people have these around their house. They're pretty nice. And I'm making sure that I'm not letting it just pool anywhere. So that means, like, if there's a great big glob, I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, so there's my little pop of green. So I know both of these have one layer of paint. So it's it can get a little bit confusing about where you put what layer of glaze you're on, but I'm keeping track by doing one coat at a time. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint this cap red. So similar to this one, painting the cap of my mushroom, this hot tamale color, and I'm gonna skip over the dots and just glaze around them. So this is sort of the most tedious part, but it's okay if I get a little bit on the dots. We don't have to be perfect, but really I'm gonna go back over these dots with purple, and I'll cover up any overlap that I have on here. So usually my classes are in person. I do some classes in my studio. I've done them in classrooms and community studios, and glazing day is always, especially in my kids' classes, is always my favorite day because it adds so much character to the pieces, and it just takes them to a whole new level. So this is one of my very favorite things to do in class, is decorating. So I hope that you like it. Usually my students like it as much as I do. Kids camp days, this is always really fun. So I'm just gonna paint one mushroom today, but you'll have more than one. They might be different sizes than mine. So just take your time and don't get confused about what layer you're on. It might be easier for you to work just one mushroom at a time. But I definitely want you to get 2 good layers of glaze on it. and it dries better when you do nice thin coats. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna wait on my purple dots until I get all the red on here that I want. And it does look kind of pink. If you want to see that, it looks pink, but it fires bright red like this one. This one's candy red apple, this one's hot tamale. They're not very different. This one's just a tiny bit of a deeper red. So even though it looks pinky, it's not. The kiln makes a really big difference in how it looks. So you have to use your imagination a little bit when you're glazing. Okay, so I'm gonna wait to do the dots. I'm gonna turn it back upside down. I'm holding it on the edge. I don't really have much glaze on the edge. And I'm gonna go and do coat number 2 of white here. And I'm hoping that I can tell where I started by 1, the glaze will probably still be a little bit wet, and 2, it's gonna look like I have a stronger covering, a more solid covering of the white. So if you get a little bit confused about where you need to stop, it's no worries if you get a little extra on there. You can do a little extra. But yeah, I can definitely tell, like, see that streak down the middle? That's where I only have 1 layer, so I've got to add some more there. And take your time on this. Taking your time in pottery is a really good thing to do, because if you rush, you miss stuff. And this is your one chance to glaze it. So after it comes out of the kiln, it's gonna be all glossy and the glaze won't stick anymore. If you try to put more glaze on, it's really hard to add more glaze after it's been fired all the way. So this is the chance to do your good glazing work. So take your time, have fun. You can always stick your finger on the inside because there's not gonna be glaze there. Okay, so now I'm gonna do my green. So this is coat number 2 of green. I would go for 2 coats, do all your mushrooms, and then if you have leftover glaze, go back and do touch-ups where you see the clay poking through. But get 2 good coats on all your mushrooms before you work on a 3rd coat. So you don't want to use up all your glaze on 1 mushroom. Just spread it out. I like this very springy green. Woo! This one's gonna look fun. It's so bright. I'm gonna smooth out. I've got some that's kind of gunking up. Just trying to smooth that out because it's never gonna dry if I leave like a big gloop on there. Okay. Can you see that? Okay. Now coat number 2 for hot tamale. And you can see I'm just laying my paintbrushes against the little palette right here. I'm not washing them, I'm not leaving them in the paint, but just beside it so that I can come back to it, because I have to switch between the colors a lot while I let them dry. You don't have to put all 4 colors on 1 mushroom. Mix it up. Like these down here, this red one, it's just got the white and the red. It's just got 2 colors. This one's gonna be funky. So you have to send me pictures. Send me pictures of you doing your projects, and then when you get your finished projects back, I want to see where you put these on display. I'm used to teaching in person. I'm not used to teaching online, so I miss the process, seeing you work. So please do take pictures and share them on my Facebook page or in Messenger, and I like to share those so that people can see what their classmates are doing. So it's more fun if it feels like we're doing it together. So I've almost got this mushroom cap covered. It really does take the longest. And I'm paying a little extra attention to the edges today because I want the green and the red to meet and cover these edges. And the last thing are the little dots here on top. So you may have something totally different, and that's okay. Like on this one, I painted the whole top yellow, and then I came back and did orange on top of the yellow. So you can make up your own designs on top. Just let it dry in between. That's the best way to get it to come out nicely, is to let it dry. So if you start to brush over only half dry glaze, then it's going to disrupt that first layer and make it look rough. And we want it to look nice and smooth and glossy. It's like you can't see brush strokes or anything on here. It melts really nicely together, but if you have like some really thick and thin parts, it will look a little bit choppy. So this is a good time to just look over your work, see how you're doing, and touch them up. So here's mine, and I'm gonna go for purple. So this is a really light, a little bit smaller brush for this. This is a really light looking purple, but it doesn't come out white afterwards. I'm kind of picky with my paintbrushes. We'll see how this one does. I got a little bit of green in there. I'm just gonna stir it in. If your glazes are like tacky, you can add water to them. Not much, just like a tiny drop. You probably won't need to. You can, if you're a kid, you can ask your mom what she thinks, or your dad. But doesn't that look light? It almost looks white, but it's not. It's purple, purple, purple. It's this color purple right here. This one's called Grapple. I made these kits yesterday for everybody to take home, and it was really fun for me to see what colors you guys picked and like what you chose to go together. So I can't wait to see how they come out. These are going to be really bright and cheerful. They're going to be super cute. Okay, so there's a couple dots. Getting their very first coat of glaze. So once these go in the kiln, they cannot touch each other because they'll be sticky. So they have to all be apart, have a little bit of space in between them. If they don't have glaze, they can touch and stack on each other, but since they have glaze, they'll have to be separate. But see, that didn't take long. Okay. So there you go. So this is going to need one more coat of glaze for my purple dots, and then he'll be good to go. So then you can move on to your next mushrooms, and I hope you have a great time. I'm here for questions, so let me know what I can help you with, and I'll see you soon when you bring your projects back to me. All right, have a great weekend. Bye.